Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to set up a varnish or foil and a die cut for sending to a commercial print shop. This PDF here is inside the Tutorial 9 folder. So if you open up the Tutorial 9 folder, you'll see a Tutorial 9 InDesign document there. That's just saved down to be opened up down to CS5, 6, or Creative Cloud. Here's the PDF instructions, and then there's a link we're going to place in there. So let's go ahead and open up the Tutorial 9 InDesign file. And you can see I've got a letter size piece of paper with an 1/8 of an inch bleed. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to place that car image in this rectangle. So I'm going to select the rectangle first, go to File, Place, select that car image, and then open. It doesn't fit quite so well, so I'm going to use the fitting shortcut. I'm going to right click, say fitting, fill frame proportionally. Still looks kind of low on the page, so I'm going to select it by the content grabber. So I'm going to select the car, not the frame, and I'm using the up arrow key to just move the car up. I guess you could click and drag if you want. So there, we got the car placed, and the goal here is to make a glossy varnish just around the car itself, so that'll stand out from the background. And I want this red text to be a glossy red varnish there. Okay, so to set up a varnish layer, basically what we do is we make a new layer, and we we make the shape of what the varnish is going to be on the art. We have to make the varnish art. So let's start by making our new layer. Go here, new layer. I'm going to call this varnish. And when the layer is selected and the pen is on the layer, then that's the active layer. So if I draw, it'll be on that layer. That's what we want. So make sure the pen is up there. It's the active layer. I'm going to select the pen tool over here. And then I'm going to zoom in. I'm using Command plus to zoom in. And basically what we want to do is draw a path of where the varnish is going to go. And we're going to have it be the shape of this car. And I'm going to do it quickly for the sake of saving time. If you were doing this, you would spend a little more time to make it a nice, neat path, nice and tight around your art. You may have questions about, well, does the shadow under the car get varnished? Where do I draw the varnish here where I can't really see where the tire is? Those are just decisions you'll have to make as a designer. You can draw any shape you want to apply varnish to. So once we get around this car here, get right to the end, you can see the little circle show up by the cursor, and I click, and that closes the path. You can see we've got a 1-point line here, and normally with a varnish you're going to have no stroke but just a fill, and you want to fill it with a color that is really obvious to pre-press that is not supposed to print. So I'm going to select the fill color of and you want to use a color that's not being used. So I'll use this cyan color because I know it's not being used. And I'll take the stroke away, make that none. So there's no stroke, and it's just cyan. I could actually come over here, and if I wanted to be absolutely sure that pre-press knows, I could call this a varnish swatch. And then that way I know not to use that for anything else in my art either. That's only intended for varnish. So it looks like that, and pre-press will be like, that's weird. And they'll see varnish, they say, okay, that's where the varnish is going to go. And that's just a proxy color. Varnish is clear, so they need something to represent where the varnish is going to go. I also want this text, this red text here, to be glossy red. So the red has to print, and then there has to be the letters, basically, a copy of the letters that's just going to be the varnish. So I need to put a copy of these letters directly on top of itself on the varnish layer, and then give it the varnish color. So the easiest way to do that is to do paste in place. So if you say, you select it and you go up to the edit menu, you say copy, and now they have a special paste in place, and what that does is that pastes the object in the exact location where it was copied from. So if I say paste in place, it'll paste it directly on top of it, and now I have 2 copies of it there, but it's directly on top of it, so you can't tell. All right, now I just need to leave it there, but move it to the varnish layer. So to move it from a layer to layer, you can grab that little colored dot on the layer that it's on, and you drag it, click and drag it up to the layer you want it to be on. So now, if I turn off the art layer, that text is there. And then all I have to do is change that to the varnish color. So I double click in there, select all, change it to the varnish swatch, deselect, and now I've got my varnish set up. This is my print layer. This is my varnish layer. Very good. The next thing I want to do is I want rounded corners around this paper here. So you can see this is an 8.5 by 11. It's got a bleed on it, so the artwork in the background is bleeding, but I want to cut it so it's rounded corner there. Actually, I'm going to do a beveled corner. So I'm going to come over here to the rectangle tool. Oh, that's right. First, we want to set up our layer. It gets set up similar to the varnish. You make a new layer, and we'll call this one die cut. And that's the active layer. And then we come to our rectangle, and I'm just going to draw on the edge of where the paper trim is. Kind of hard to see there, but it snaps to it. We can check that later. And with a die cut now, a die cut represents the razor blade that's going to cut through the paper. So we don't want any fill on it. We just want it to be a 1-point line. So we've got it set as a 1-point black line. And that's just perfect. So now we just need to set the corner, change the corners on it. So if we go to the object menu, corner options, I was thinking rounded, but I might just try this bevel one. And we got the preview button turned on so we can see the effect. I'm going to increase it. And we'll just go like 1/2 inch. Then say OK. And so now we've got a die cut layer. So if I turn off my art layer, and we can go to the preview mode here to get rid of all the boxes. So you go preview. You can see this black line represents the razor blade. And I can turn it off, and that's the die cut. There's my varnish and my art layer. So all we need to do from here is export it. So we need to export it 3 times, one for print, one for the CMYK, one for the varnish, and one for the die cut. So let's go ahead and turn off these, and we'll export the CMYK. We have export. I'm going to call this just the CMYK for press. Adobe PDF print. I'm going to save it to my desktop in the Tutorial 9 folder, I guess. Doesn't matter, just the desktop. Save. We're doing this for press, so we go to PDF X1A. I like to turn this on, view PDF after exporting. That way it just opens the PDF automatically for you. Doesn't change the X1A setting. Marks and bleeds, we're going to turn on crop mark, page information, use document bleed settings, and then say export. It's doing it in the background, and here you can see the bleed is set up correctly for the art. And there it is. All right, that's one. And then we need to export the varnish. So we'll turn that off, turn on the varnish, do Command E for export. This I'll call varnish. Save. We can leave all the settings the same and just say export. So there, that's the varnish plate for pre-press. They would say, okay, there's my crop mark, so they know how to line it up. And that's just going to be varnish. And then last is the die cut. Here, say export, Command E. We'll call this die cut. Say save, leave the settings the same, export. And there's the die cut. So now, when we go back to our, oh, I didn't save them in there, sorry. When we go back to our desktop, we'll have the 3 files to turn in, the 3 PDFs. Let's actually turn these all back on. We'll do a save as, call this last name, Pavia Tutorial 9. Save that to the desktop. Close it. So I've got my InDesign document, the die cut, the varnish, the CMYK. I can compress all those. Name that Pavia Tutorial 9. And then I can submit that to me. That gives me all those there. All right. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.